The jealous neighbors of my house thought they spiritually owned it, so they kept breaking in. My husband and I bought our house back in the 70s. To call it a fixer-upper would be kind. It had been on the market for over a year, and we were the first to even look at it closer than a drive-by. But by the end of the year living there, we'd done a ton of work, and the place was starting to look great. Even the neighbors commented on how great the house and yard looked. It's a wonder what new siding and grass seed does. One summer day, I was hanging my laundry out when I noticed my neighbor's granddaughter and grandson run across my yard and into my house. I'd never had those kids in my house before, so I was shocked as to why they'd do that. I quickly went in after them. The little boy, I think, was about 4, just a little guy, following his sister around. The sister looked to be about 6 or maybe 7. And she told me that she had permission to be in my house. I asked who gave her this permission, and she said her mum told her she could. I got the kids to follow me, and I took them to their grandparents' house. Their grandmother and mother were on the porch, so I told the women what had happened. The kids' mother confirmed that she had indeed given both children permission to explore my house. I stuttered a moment while asking why. She said, "You bought that house out from under me. We're the ones that should be living there. The kids are sad they don't get to live across the street from their grandparents, and since they should have been living there, I told them they could go in." I looked at the kids. They were pushing and poking each other and giggling. They didn't really seem all that upset to me. I said, "That house was on the market for 14 months, and I've lived here longer than a year. Why are you unhappy about this now?" At this, the woman's mother, who was my neighbor, chimed in. "She was getting ready to ask about that house when you bought it. It wasn't at all fair of you. You stepped in and now my daughter and grandkids can't live near me. They have more of a right than you to be there." I seriously didn't know what to say. I know for a fact that no one else had looked into the purchase of this house until my husband and I bought it. I looked at both women standing in front of me, frowning with their arms crossed, looking defiant, and decided that I really didn't want to engage this kind of goofiness. I asked the mother to please keep her kids out of my house, and I left. I walked home to the sound of both of them loudly yapping their displeasure behind me. This was one of the most unreasonable situations I've ever been in, and I've been in a few. These women made our lives miserable for a while. Every week we had city inspectors dropping in because of anonymous complaints of unauthorized construction. We were building in a couple of rooms, but we had permits for everything. We began keeping the permits in a folder by the door because we had to show them all the time. I think nowadays you have to display them on a wall where everyone can see. 2 different times, police pounded on our door late at night because one of our neighbors, quote, heard screaming and had called them. And there was no screaming, we had been asleep both times. It was the 70s. You could call the cops and not say who you were back then, I guess. It kinda sucked. I had to carry my keys on me at all times when I went outside, because if I left the doors unlocked, these 2 kids would be right in there. They managed to come in several more times that summer, and it was difficult getting them out. It was turning into a nightmare. Just as I was looking into my legal options for getting them to stop, the older couple, the grandparents of the kids who kept coming in, moved to a farm that they'd inherited. They sold their house, and our next new neighbors were great people. In fact, they're still there. The hassles had only lasted a few months, but my gosh, it was intense for a while. Then I found out they'd known they were going to move all along. Those 2 had been bored one day and just decided to hassle me because I was new and they'd already hassled everyone else in the neighborhood. The sale of the house was the only thing they could come up with to have against me. I also found out that our entire neighborhood was glad to see them go. Now, before I get reprimanded for not calling the police, believe me when I say that back then you did not want police involved. The police we had in this city during this time were all in a state of perpetual anger, and they would make up a reason to arrest you if you even looked at them wrong. I freaked out in a major way when they showed up in the middle of the night. Also, if I'd called the police on the trespassing kids, the issues I was experiencing would have been stepped up. And yeah, I am a ginormous wimp. Those 2 girls have been known to physically attack people, and they were lots bigger than me. There have been hassles with neighbors since then, but none of them as awful as this was. Like my husband says, just be glad they didn't give their house to their mean daughter with the trespassing kids. I think I would have moved if that had happened. What a damn nightmare. And I definitely wouldn't have blamed you for moving if you were stuck with the daughter and kids as an ongoing thing. As a slight silver lining, if that happened, you would have got the satisfaction of selling the house to someone else from under their daughter's nose again. You could even deliberately pick the most awful person you could find to be their new neighbor. I guess there would be a bit of collateral damage for the rest of the street with that move though. Very petty and very satisfying. But what you did was almost certainly better. Quietly held your ground and waited out these awful people until they were no longer a problem. I know that they were just trying to be annoying, but I wonder if there was any sincerity in their ideas of property rights, because they really learned those on another planet, didn't they? I wanted this thing and therefore I can do what I want with it is a dangerous line of thinking. I'm sure this wasn't the first or last time these adult schoolyard bullies engaged in this sort of behavior. Just be thankful the rest of it happened away from you. Difficult customer demands we place her very heavy sofa onto her delicate wooden floorboards. You got it, lady. Back in my warehouse days, there were occasions where the customer service manager, who's still a great friend of mine even to this day, would ask for myself and a few warehouse workers to help him redeliver and reinstall a repaired or reordered sofa for a customer. The day of the redelivery, the customer service manager pulls me aside and warns me that this lady is extremely difficult and aggressive. In this instance, she ordered a leather sofa in a high-quality leather, paid top dollar, waited for 22 weeks, and on delivery, decided she didn't like the color. Now normally the company doesn't do reorders for changes of mind when it comes to choosing the wrong color, but this lady made such a fuss and complained so much that the general manager made an exception. We get to the home and our contract driver is just unloading. The customer has chosen a massive 3-seater recliner with a metal frame and bracket on the bottom. Normally, with the metal bracket comes special plastic stoppers that go on each foot of the frame and each edge of the metal bracket so that no damage will occur to the customer's floor. As we carefully navigate the sofa into this lady's lounge, she starts complaining loudly that us warehouse workers are dirty, idiots, lazy, and too slow. We begin to unwrap the furniture and this lady is getting impatient. She's whining to the customer service manager, "How much longer is this going to take?" He assures her that we're taking our time to ensure the sofa is unwrapped and in perfect condition. We also note that this lady has light wooden floorboards, so I immediately move to start placing the stoppers on the floor. And she starts shrieking. "Why is he touching my lounge? Is he breaking it?" I said, "No, miss, I'm just—" "Don't talk to me. Get your filthy hands away from my lounge. I just need a few seconds to put on these rubber—" "Put my lounge down now, or I'm calling the manager." I shot a look to the customer service manager, and he just shrugs. We place the sofa directly onto the floorboards and we can already hear a scrape. The customer service manager hands the lady his paperwork. She signs off on a successful delivery and signs off that we've assembled the lounge as required and placed it down where she wants. This lady smirks at us and plonks herself down onto the lounge. There's a scraping sound as the metal frame digs into the wooden floorboards. We grab all the plastic packaging and make our way back to the store. Guess what was waiting for us? A customer complaint. According to this lady, we damaged her very expensive floorboards. The customer service manager shows where this customer signed off on a successful redelivery and that we assembled and placed the lounge to her satisfaction. She got exactly what she asked for. Yes, she did. Seriously, good riddance to the old bat. I hope her floor repair or replacement costs her an arm and a leg. It was just so darn pre-diddly-ictable that the complaint was waiting for the author as soon as they got back. But also, it must have been so satisfying. "Oh, what? You mean the thing that you yelled at me for doing to try and protect you from happened? Oh no, who could have foreseen this?" And there's no way in heck that this woman even started to learn her lesson from the encounter. I wouldn't be surprised if her screaming at customer service went on for a long time before the issue was finally put to rest. And it might even have ended with her getting reimbursed. It can happen if you're a retail slave. I hope not though. She deserved a scratched floor for who she chose to be as a person. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Entitled Dad wants to trade a Happy Meal toy for my son's $40 toy. Let me preface this by saying my son loves to share. If he has one piece of candy left and you ask him for it, and say it's your favorite, he'll either give it to you or split it in half so you can have some. He enjoys things much more if he shares them so you can enjoy it too. That's just how he is. Also, we're on a pretty strict budget, so he doesn't receive rewards or presents except on special occasions. My son is 6, and we just came home from parent-teachers conference, and we were told he was doing great. So we stopped at the store on the way home, and I let him pick out a toy as a reward. He picks out a $40 Iron Man toy. This toy would light up, was about up to his knee, and was just a cool, fun Iron Man. Upon arriving home, he sees 2 small kids who, for the purposes of the story, we'll just call boy and girl. So he immediately wants to go outside and show them his new toy and play with them. I'm watching them from the window. I see the girl go to her house and come back with one of the Iron Man toys that came from a McDonald's Happy Meal. She gives the Happy Meal Iron Man to my son, grabs his Iron Man and her brother, and runs back to their house. I run outside and I'm met by my son who's crying. He tells me that they took his Iron Man and gave him the Happy Meal one as a trade. I am livid. I march over to their house and the dad comes to the door. I explain what happened and I tell him that I want my son's toy back. He tries to tell me that my son agreed to the trade and they're both Iron Men, so what's the difference? Meanwhile, I see these entitled kids behind him playing roughly with my son's toy. After about 15 minutes of arguing with a very sad 6-year-old by my side, I finally threatened to call the cops. The entitled dad tells the kids to give back the toy. They tell him, "No, we like this Iron Man better." He tells the kids he'll get them the same Iron Man next week when he gets paid, and the kids still tell him no. He then tells them they can keep it, but have to give it back when he gets them one. I interrupt him and say, "No, they can't keep my son's toy, that's his reward for doing good in school." The girl then smashed Iron Man on the floor, breaking the arm off him. My son, of course, starts bawling. The entitled dad and the kids just start laughing, and the girl just says, "Oops, he can have it back now." I take my devastated son home with his broken Iron Man. It's getting late at this point, and I tell my son that I'll take Iron Man to the hospital when he's sleeping, so his arm can get fixed, but he has to get to sleep so I can take him. About an hour after my son is asleep, there's a knock on our door. It's another neighbor. She tells me that she saw part of it, and the dad bragged to her husband about it. She also tells me that she does daycare for the kids and they often act like that. Our awesome neighbor proceeds to hand me a brand new Iron Man, just like my son's. I thank her but tell her I couldn't accept it. She laughs and says that she's putting the cost on the entitled dad's daycare bill, so he's actually paying for it. I accept and I invite her in for a glass of wine. Needless to say, Iron Man came out of the hospital looking brand new and my son was ecstatic. He also stopped playing with the entitled kids. For some clarification, this all happened 2 years ago. A lot of people are asking why I didn't call the cops anyway. Several reasons why we didn't, and some of you all might not understand this, but others will. Although I'm white, my family is Native American, and cops around here have twitchy trigger fingers. And the next, this got settled, albeit in a very roundabout way. Karma will finish the rest. I'm not sure what happened to the dad and the kids, although I like to think that their last name was O'Doyle, and their car went off a cliff after slipping on a banana peel. Again, this was not what happened, just my happy fantasy of what did. And I might be a bit tired biased in this, but yes, my kid is awesome. He really is. He's being taught manners, respect, and my main goal is for him to not be a jerk when he grows up. Oh, and for whoever decided to mark this as fake as frick, I could put pics, receipts, and contact info for the awesome neighbor, but I recognize facts are too trivial for trolls and keyboard warriors to bother with. So go be buddies with the entitled dad, and have a great day. My lord, we're getting a bunch of school bullies who apparently never grew out of their habits in today's stories. By my count, we're at 3 in a row so far. So I'll say that with any luck, these kids will outgrow their dad's influence. We're not sure where mum is, and with any luck, she's a much better influence who gets custody far more often. I'm only somewhat annoyed that the dad probably still finished off all of this thinking that he won the encounter, and didn't receive any cause to change his behavior that he noticed. I mean, I like that our author won, but something about these absolute jerks walking around with an unearned sense of smug victory rubs me the wrong way. Still, that's all on me, as our protagonist is clearly happy with the outcome, so I'll swallow my dissatisfaction. Am I the jerk for going home after I got told to sleep on the floor? I'll preface this by saying that my husband has a friend, Carl, who he considers to be one of his closest pals. My husband sometimes calls Carl his nicotine because of how much he misses him and wants to spend time with him. They do everything together, they're even co-workers working the same job. Unfortunately, Carlos's wife passed away from cancer 3 months ago, which caused him to distance himself. My husband felt devastated for him. He recently started spending more time with him again and bought him meals and new clothes. We planned a 3-day vacation to another state. I made a hotel reservation for 2. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had invited Carl to come with us. This made me upset because it spoiled the entire vacation. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just only found out when we went to pick him up. I sucked it up after my husband explained that Carl is a recent widower who's been wallowing in grief for so long and needed this vacation. The problem is, money is tight, and since Carl hasn't worked ever, since his wife passed, he couldn't pay for his own room, and we didn't have a budget for it. My husband said we should just share one room, and I again sucked it up, since he said we'd all be out on the beach all day anyway. The first night I was in bed when my husband and Carl got back. I got woken up by my husband telling me to get out of bed and sleep on the mattress he put out for me on the floor, and he and Carl would take the bed. I asked if he was serious, and he asked what else was he supposed to do. He said Carl was a guest, we can't let him sleep on the floor. And at the same time, I can't share a bed with Carl while my husband sleeps on the floor. I told him I didn't sign up for this, but he told me to suck it up and tried to pull the Carl is a widower card. I told Carl to get out, and then I got up and dressed to go home. My husband started yelling at me, calling me irrational, but I wasn't having it. I left the hotel and traveled back home. Carl didn't say anything when he saw me leave, except that I was making this non-issue an issue. They got back and my husband refused to even talk about it, but still said I ruined this for Carl and us, and acted abhorrently and disgustingly. Look, I'll admit Carl is struggling and I might have ruined this for him, but I didn't even know he was coming in the first place. Yeah, it sounds like your husband might love Carl more than he loves you, which isn't a gay joke, by the way. Platonic love is a whole thing, and I honestly think I know a lot of love triangles of sorts that have a partner who's more attached to one of their friends than their partners. And there is a correct way to do that in the long, complex slog that is long-term relationships. And how the husband is handling this is not the right way. Yeah. Carl needs support, but hopefully Carl also has other friends and relationships to support him as well, and probably shouldn't be trying to fill the void of his recent lost wife the way he's doing. The husband is fine in trying to support his friend, but turfing your wife out of the bed that she paid for is going a bit far, mate. You are alienating one to accommodate the other, and I don't think you're going to like how this goes if you continue that particular balance in your love and social lives. Am I the jerk for storming off from my sister's wedding after she dead-named my son? I'm a 45-year-old single father of 3. Their mum died 10 years ago. I have 3 sons, Andrew, Connor, and Max. Connor was born female, he's trans. He came out as trans 5 years ago and is now socially transitioned, but not yet physically. My sister, who's 38, just got married. Me and my sons were also invited. My family has known that Connor is trans for 2 years now, and some have adjusted well, some not so much. My sister is pretty indifferent about it. Her wedding was really well organized to the last detail. She wanted all the men to wear shirt and tie and the women to wear sundresses. I texted her a picture of our outfits the day before the wedding, and she asked, "Where's Nia's dress?" I was a bit surprised and told her not to dead-name my son Connor, and that he'll be wearing a shirt and tie like the rest of the men, or we aren't coming. She said, fine, and that was that. At the reception, my sister got mad that Connor was wearing a tie, but didn't say much after that. When we sat down at our table, his placing card said Nia. I went to my sister and she said she just used their real name. I told her me and the boys are leaving and she told me, "Don't you dare cause a scene at my wedding. Nia can be a guy any other day." I called her a bigot and we left. My family says I ruined her wedding. Nope, the only person causing a scene here was the bride. It would have taken no effort to accommodate Connor after 5 years of apparently not minding them. And if you're going to be a bigot, at least let them know ahead of time so that they don't attend the wedding and cause that scene you're so deathly afraid of. The sister even said it was fine that he'd wear a shirt and tie, so she doesn't get to explode at everyone for them doing exactly what they said they'd do. Expectations were set and agreed to. You don't get to be mad. We can give her some benefit of the doubt and say that perhaps she forgot and that she agreed in the heat of wedding planning, but come on, realize your mistake, apologize, and move on. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.